Thank you for joining us today in episode 98 of the Pool Chasers podcast. As always, our mission is to help educate and inspire in the form of a podcast. In this episode, we had the opportunity to sit down with someone that we really respect and who has accomplished a ton for his age. Mitch shares his story with us about how he grew up in his family business, and after he graduated college, he knew he wanted to be a part of it. He has used what he learned at college to open a pool service division for the company and has integrated several systems and processes into this business. And you know we love our systems and processes here at Pool Chasers, and Mitch does as well. He even shares a few with us on the episode. It was a true honor to have him on the show. Please enjoy this episode with Mitch Katz of Land of Elite. Welcome to your go-to podcast for the pool and spa industry. My name is Tyler Rasmussen.
And my name is Greg Villafania. And this is the Pool Chasers podcast.
Hey, Mitch. Good to talk to you, man. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Sun's shining today. It was great weather. We got a little bit of news about restrictions being lifted in New York possibly today. Not being lifted today, but the news came through today. So that was kind of encouraging to hear about. So today was a pretty good day.
Very cool. Yeah, that's definitely exciting for a lot of people, especially up, northeast up there. So we want to just go back a little bit. So can you tell us more about yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Mitch Katz. I'm the general manager at Land of Elite. It was originally Elite Landscaping. Actually, it was originally Elite Landscaping and Plant Care. My dad started in 1985. So that's a little bit about the business. Myself, I didn't start in the business until 2007, which was right after my freshman year of college. Before that, I was a lifeguard actually, and a diver, a springboard diver. So I was in the pool industry doing that, but not necessarily building pools or servicing pools. Although as a lifeguard, we did test the chemistry. We didn't make adjustments though. Somebody else did that. Grew up here in Beacon, New York. That's where I went to school, Beacon City School District. We're about 80 miles north of New York City. So it's about a 90-minute train ride down along the Hudson River. Don't go into the city too much. I'm not much of a city person or a crowd person. I like smaller crowds and smaller conversations. And
oh, you're in a good place. This small little circle right here, good conversation.
Right, exactly. This is a good thing. Yeah.
Your family is pretty close, right? You did a lot of things together growing up?
Yep. So my parents worked together, and when my sister's about 21 months older than me. So we're pretty close in age. And so we were pretty close growing up, and we would even spend time at the business when my mom would be at work and we weren't in school or something. We'd actually hang out at the office and draw pictures and stuff. There's actually still stuff in the office today, stuff that my sister and I drew when we were kids. I think there's a handprint, one of us put our hand on the copy machine, and it's, one of our, when we were, I don't know, little. Some of that stuff is actually still in my mom's office. My mom passed actually in 2016 after she was very heavily involved in the business, and she passed in 2016 from cancer, and her office is still pretty much her office. It's a little bit of storage right now. I keep some stuff in there locked up, but a lot of stuff that was in there when it was her office is still in there. And so a lot of that stuff is stuff from when we were kids or stuff we, wrote out to her or sent to her, stuff like that. So yeah, but we'd went on a lot of family vacations. We tried to stay tight, and, we did holidays, and we did a lot of family dinner, things like that. So yeah, we were pretty close.
Yeah. Sorry to hear that about your mom. I mean, I know yesterday was Mother's Day as well, and I'm sure now more than ever, it's very important to, have your family close to you, and you're in a family business. So I'm sure it's nice to, probably have your siblings and your dad as well. So, but just want to say that's too bad. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks. May's always a tough month because she passed in May too. And obviously it's crazy season in the industry, at least for here. So you guys, I listened to the podcast the previous weeks and, the whole seasonality of things. So here, right, this is the crazy season for us. I know you guys don't deal with that in Arizona, but May for us is wild. And so throwing a couple of those things in there, and it makes it a little bit tougher of a month for us. But I'm halfway through right now, our pools that we're opening, halfway through that season. Definitely busy, trying to build up the crews and get things going.
Right. Do you think, being around your parents while they were running a business, do you think you learned quite a bit at a young age about how the industry works and how business works?
Yeah, I don't think I learned necessarily too much about the industry specifically. I maybe did a little bit, I guess, because there are some of those pictures that are in the office I talked about. Like one of them is a picture of my sister and I in one of the box trucks that we had back then. I do remember going on a couple jobs with my dad as a kid. I remember a job we were doing a patio with a pebble finish on the top, and so I went out with him to check out what was going on, and he let me throw some of the pebbles, some of the gravel on top of the patio. So that's definitely a memory I have from early on being involved, like that. And just in general, though, business wise, seeing what it takes to run a business, I think definitely helped me where I am today. Just watching them do whatever had to be done. My dad meeting with clients, kind of whatever time, and working through a lot of different challenges. For sure, I saw a lot of that go on.
Yeah, that's a good lesson at a young age for sure. Tell us a little bit more about your diving. That's pretty cool. Not too many people we know, dove like you did.
I actually was a competitive gymnast from the time I was about 9 till I was 14. I did a recreational before that, but didn't really get competitive until I think about 8 or 9 maybe. And 14, we got a new high school in my school district that had a pool for the first time. It was funny because one of the gym teachers in the high school happened to have been my gym teacher in elementary school. And she knew from back then that I did gymnastics and I could flip. So when the swim coach was looking to build up the first team that he was looking for a diver because we had 2 1-meter springboard diving boards. So she told him that I could flip. So he was like, "Oh, why don't you come to the pool and bring a bathing suit? We can see what you could do off the board." So I'm like, all right. So I didn't know anything about diving. I obviously knew about flipping. So he was like, "Do a flip off the board." So I did a flip. He was like, "Oh, try this." So I tried something and I did it. He was like, "You're on the team." And
Here's a Speedo.
So that was a big decision actually, because it was a big switch. It was a big lifestyle change. Gymnastics is really intense. There's not a lot of men's programs or boys programs. So it's a little scattered. So for us, we were driving about an hour to practice every day for gymnastics, and practices were like 3.5 hours long. So it would pretty much be like right after school, I would do homework in the car, eat dinner in the car, drive to the place, have practice. My mom would hang out. My sister would be with us a lot, or with her a lot, get out of practice at, I don't know what time it was, 8 or 9 o'clock, I guess, and hour home. And practices was on Saturdays too. So it was 6 days a week. So it was kind of a big thing. When diving came around, it was closer by. It was more realistic for me too, because it was more from a getting into college standpoint and a scholarship standpoint. That's one of the reasons I made the decision to switch, is because I had a greater chance at getting a scholarship in college for diving than I did for gymnastics. And so that really paid off, because I dove all through high school. I did very well in high school, and then I ended up getting a scholarship to go to Marist College to dive. And so that was, that definitely helped me a lot. And I actually didn't really plan on staying local. So Marist, so you guys don't necessarily know, but Marist College is about a half hour away from the house that I grew up in. When I was looking at colleges, first of all, I wanted to go somewhere warm because I hate the cold. And so I was looking at FAU down in Florida. My sister was actually at University of Buffalo, or SUNY. Buffalo is just one of the snowiest places in America. And so I was like, no, I don't want to go there. But I applied anyways, and I spoke to the diving coach there, and I spoke to the diving coach at FAU. FAU is at least a D2, if not a D3 school at the time. So they didn't really have money for athletics per se when it came to scholarships. And so that was one of the driving factors. The other factor was I actually got an opportunity to dive outside, which is kind of interesting for people. You don't really realize it, but in diving, you spot the water and the ceiling and the board. Right. So if you're doing like a front 3.5, right, for example, when you're flipping, you're seeing, it's kind of subconscious, but you kind of train yourself. You see waterboard ceiling, waterboard ceiling, waterboard ceiling, kick out, right? And you go in. And so, but when you're used to doing that inside, where there's a contrast between the water and the ceiling, at least, you go outside where they dive pretty much. And Florida's all outside, and probably where you guys are, diving's outside. Mm-hmm. It's like, the water's blue, the board's blue, the sky's blue. I had no idea where I was in any dive. And so I was like, nope, not diving outside. That called that off. And then, and my coach at the time knew the coach at Marist. So she started talking to him about me because she had seen me, at some local meets, and they knew each other. And so that's how I ended up at Marist and dove there for all 4 years.
Oh, congratulations. That's really cool. I actually watched the diving competitions. They're outside. I think Red Bull is like the major sponsor on those, but they're like diving off of bridges and different things like that. I did a lot of cliff diving at the lake when I was a kid, but the shit these guys are doing off of just, dude, it's crazy high. Like, I don't even know if I want to stand up there. And these dudes are freaking just doing some of the craziest twists, flips, you name it. And the commentators are such assholes too, because they'll be like, oh, he splashed too much. I'm like, what the freak? I'm so proud of him that he just got his feet in first, man.
He didn't die, you mean? He didn't die, yeah.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But
some of those heights are crazy too.
Oh,
yeah.
Dude.
So we didn't. So in terms of heights, there's 1 meter, 3 meter, and then competition. For platform, there's 5, 7.5, and 10 meter. Marist didn't have a tower like that, and our conference didn't dive tower. Some of the more serious, I shouldn't say more serious, but some of the bigger schools, I guess, with bigger programs, more built up programs, they have the towers and they do compete tower diving. I didn't compete, but we would go on training trips every year. Our first year was to Florida, and then the last 3 years college we went to Puerto Rico, and all the facilities that we went to had platforms. So we got an opportunity to dive some platform. And so the highest one is 10 meters. So I've done some stuff off 10 meter, but that's not even close to what those guys are doing in those Red Bull cliff diving things. And you'll notice too, the Red Bull cliff diving stuff, they don't go in head first. It's all feet first, because if you try to go in head first like that, you would rip your shoulders out of your sockets.
Oh, hell no. I mean, something bad's going to happen either way, but it's crazy to think, like, even when you're at the lake, you know what I mean? Like, when I'm young, I was thinking about how stupid I was when I was young, because you can't, at the lake, it's green. You can't see what's at the bottom. You're just jumping in because everybody says, hey, that's the spot over there. It's all
That's
good.
why I don't cliff dive. I don't cliff dive. And people be like, oh, you want to do it? Like, I forget where we were. We went whitewater rafting for my cousin's bachelor party. And there was like a part where you stop and like, oh, you can jump off the cliffs. And the people that were with us, oh, you were a diver, go do something. I'm like, no, I don't jump off cliffs. Like, why not? You're afraid of heights? I'm like, no, I'm not afraid of heights. I'm afraid of what's below the water. I can't see that. I don't know how deep it is. I don't know what's swimming there or anything.
I said, afraid of heights? Hey, coach, let me in the gym. I'm going to show these guys about heights.
Yeah, right.
Dive off.
No, so actually there's the house that I grew up in, we had built a pool, and we also did a renovation on the house. And so the way it was, the pool was pretty much right out the back door of the section of the house. And that part of the house kind of hung over the edge of the pool a little bit. And so I remember there was one time, I think it was one time, maybe it was more times, but there was one time we had people over, we were celebrating, I think, like one of my family's birthdays. I think it was my grandmother's birthday party or something like that. I remember I could go out my sister's bedroom window, and I could be on the roof that looked over the pool, and my parents' bedroom was under that roof. I think my mom was in there, or maybe she was in the kitchen, and she apparently heard something, to tell the story. She heard something on the roof, and she said she thought about it for 2 seconds. I was like, Mitchell! And just as she said that, I was off the roof into the pool.
That's but awesome.
That's probably like 20 feet, but the pool was only not deeper than 6 feet. Right. So I wasn't diving. I was just jumping.
Right.
Yeah. I've jumped off a lot of roofs into pools in my day, but definitely nothing like you've done. It's cool hearing your story, because my daughters have been heavy into gymnastics for about a couple of years now, and they really like swimming. So maybe they'd kind of have a leg up switching from gymnastics to swimming, because they're really good at it. And it is pretty crazy. There's not too many boys that do gymnastics, but the ones that are there, I mean, they're all like, gymnasts are crazy dedicated. It's even crazy because my kids are normal kids, but it's like when they get there, they're pretty focused on what's going on. I'm like, what the hell happens when we get in here? You know what I mean? Like, you listen to the teacher.
Gymnastics is intense.
It is. And those boys are freaking ripped too,
it teaches you a lot. And it's really hard on your body too. Like I actually said to my wife, we have a 4-month-old daughter, and we talk a lot about like what she's going to want to be interested in, right? Is she going to want to dive like dad? Is she going to want to dance like mom? And my wife's like, oh, she's not going to want to do anything that we did. She's going to want to do something entirely differently. And I'm like, I don't even know if I want her to do gymnastics. You know, gymnastics just kills your body. It kills your back and your knees and your ankles. I have all kinds of issues with my ankles and my knees. So
oh yeah, I bet
it's definitely not easy on the body. It's not easy on you as a parent either. If they get competitive with that, your time spent.
Yeah, you go in the gym, it smells like Chuck E. Cheese. Everybody's doing their homework, eating, staying all hours. I mean, it's still, actually, they just moved to a new gym. We haven't been to it yet because of everything going on. But yeah, it's a lot. There was actually, man, it was probably like 3 or 4 months. No, it was probably like 6 months ago. But a boy fell in there on the rings or whatever he was doing. His freaking bone freaking popped through his skin. Took it like a G though. I'm not going to lie. Cause he's like, they were like bringing him in and I don't think he was crying or anything, but they were just telling him like, don't look down or whatever. I'm like, I'm going to puke right now, dude. Like,
yeah. Once you look at that, once you see that, you know, it's funny too, because when I was younger, I fell off the monkey bars and I cracked my head open, the back of my head on a jungle gym that was too big for me. And so I jumped to grab the monkey bars off the platform and I grabbed it with just the edge of my fingers and I slipped back and whacked the back of my head. And I was fine. Like I was cool. They came running over. I was cool. But as soon as I put my hand on the back of my head and then brought it around and saw the blood in it, that's when I freaked out.
Oh yeah. For sure. Yeah, those head injuries. You
I, you know, even in diving though, I watched a girl pretty much scalp herself diving. Oof. That was pretty serious. She wanted to get back up on the board, but she didn't really know what was going on at that time.
No.
So,
you must have a lot of confidence, because I do know that about jumping off stuff or even through skating, snowboarding stuff, that you have to, that switch has to go on in your brain where it's like, you're just totally devoted and you got to do it. Because if you spend too much time thinking about the consequences, you're either going to do it eventually and probably get hurt, or you're just not going to do it. So I think people with a ton of confidence just seem to be so much better at that stuff. What do you think?
I think it teaches you the confidence because, you know, if you're going to do that, especially for diving, and gymnastics is pretty similar, but for diving too, it's a little bit more of a focused situation. It's just you at that time on the board. Somebody announces what the dive is. Everything's quiet. And you're like, all right, I got to go. Like I got to walk out the end of this board and do what I got to do. And sometimes it doesn't go so well. Sometimes you're flat on your back. Sometimes you're flat on your belly. But the thing is just to go. You got to just tell yourself, all right, I'm good. I'm going to do this and going to do it the best I can. But if I screw it up, I screw it up. You know, I mean, it's what it is. Going to hurt, but I'm going to get over it. And so I actually coach diving too. Right now I coach at Vassar College, and you know, I have a lot of times when I'm trying to push divers to do new dives because they can do it. They don't believe that they can do it, but I know that they can do it, seeing what they're seeing. They're like, oh, I'm going to smack, right? They're going to land flat on their belly, they think, or on their back. I'm going to smack. I'm like, all right, so, well, it's going to hurt. So.
That's really cool, because I was just about to ask, what do you do when they do, you know, belly flop?
When they do smack?
Yeah.
No, so I don't say anything. It happens. I let them, you know, react however they're reacting. They swim to the side of the pool. They say whatever they say. They get out of the pool, and I'm like, "You good?" And they're like, I'm like, "No, you're good, right?" Like, "Oh, I guess so." Like, because it really, I said that. I said, "You're gonna smack. It's gonna hurt. I get that. I've done it a million times. I've smacked off 3 meter, and I've done 2.5 backflips straight to my stomach off 3 meter diving boards. It's not fun. I get it, but it's not gonna last. And it's not going to kill you. So, and when you do it, because you can do it, you're going to feel so much better about actually getting a new dive, right? So the risk is pretty actually slim and the reward is much higher. So you should go for it and do it. I push them. I think it works.
For sure. That's cool, man.
That is good. Usually the process people will quit on their own through the process, whether they got what it takes or not. Right. Do you listen to podcasts at all?
Very little.
Very little. Nike has a new podcast out, but there was this lady, I can't remember her name, but she was talking about grit, and they were actually talking about running and diving and things like that. And they were talking about how, you know, how so many athletes are so similar, but it's just the drive they have to just do things over and over again, like to a stupid like amount, as somebody that might not have had any talent whatsoever, but they just like worked their ass off a million times harder than anybody else that kind of got them to that point.
Yeah, I mean, grit's like a big word, like in self-development, right? There's all kinds of books on it. And you may have been listening to a podcast with a woman who wrote a book on grit, and I forget what her name is or what the name. It was, right? I think her name is like,
the book is Grit,
right?
something Grit. It's driving me nuts now. Because her last name is like Ducksworth or something.
Yeah,
Ducksworth. Because it was something I remember,
like Mighty Ducks.
Yeah.
yeah, it's all about grit. There's a book called that I really enjoyed. It's called The Talent Code, and I forget who wrote that, but it's The Talent Code, and it's about hot spots. It's about like Brazil with soccer and Dominican Republic with baseball, and a spot out of Russia where it's a hot spot for tennis, and some other places. And they talk about what makes these places hot spots, and some of it really is just about the training and the dedication and the grit that goes in just doing it time after time after time after time. It's about focused practice. But like teaching grit like that too is important, because a lot of people don't, especially nowadays, like they don't learn that. They don't learn to like, okay, if you fail, they give up, or they don't learn to push through, right? And so realizing that you can fail, that you can fall down, but then get back up, I think is a key for people to learn. And I think it's really cool when I see that taught, like my divers. Even in one instance, I had a diver in warm-ups. He was doing a new dive. It was on 1 meter, and it was a fairly new dive. He had gotten it maybe that week or so, and he landed just flat on his face. He went in at an angle that he just nailed his face right on the surface of the water. And we were just about to start a competition. That was like the end of warm-ups, and the trainers saw it from like across the pool. They saw him, so they came like running over because they thought maybe he had a concussion. No, I've seen that happen a million times, and I haven't seen anybody got a concussion like that, but not off 1 meter anyways. So I knew that he was okay pretty much, but they came running over and they checked him out, and he kind of got freaked out about it because they came running over and everything. They were checking him out for the concussion, and then they were like, all right, no, he's good. And I looked at him, I said, you good? He's like, yeah, I think I'm okay. I'm like, good, because you're first up, go. And he's like, wait, what? I'm the first up? I'm like, you got to go. I mean, we're in competition now. This is it. You got to go. He's like, all right. So then he goes, and that dive that he smacked on was like his second or third dive in the list, because they do 6 dives in competition in that dual meet. So I think it was like his second or third. And at first, when we first started, he was like, oh yeah, I'll just take that dive out. I'll change it on the board. And I was like, all right, if that's what you want to do. And then like a dive or two in before he got to that, I looked at him from across the pool, and I kind of, in college, you judge too. Coaches are also judging. But I looked at him, and I said to him when I had a moment, I said, hey, if you're up for it, I think you got that dive. I think you could do it. It's completely up to you. You want to go for it? Go for it. You want to change it for something easier and more, that you're more confident in? That's up to you. So he got up on the board. He didn't change the dive. He did the dive, and he did it really well.
Nice.
And so that was like a huge lesson, not just for him, but for the whole team, right? The whole team saw him push through and do that. And that was just a really cool coaching moment for me that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, that is super cool. I mean, we could go on and on about that, but one thing I will say that for me, one of the biggest takeaways was that I believe she was saying that the ones that really go above and beyond, the one thing that she did notice was that they don't make any excuses. Even if they grew up in the ghetto, their parents died or split up or something like that, they don't ever talk about it. They don't, when they mess up, they don't talk about it. They just keep going, and there's no excuses for why they didn't do something. They just keep pushing through, and it's a waste of time to bring up an excuse. And I just thought that was really cool. And I can see the only way somebody can, dunk a basketball or dive in a pool or do any one of these things so great is that they didn't waste so much time in complaining. They just did it over and failed and over again, failed. And they didn't talk about it. They didn't go bitch about it. They just go. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a life of just working hard at something. It's really cool.
Yeah. People talk about overnight successes, right? And a lot of people think that there's these overnight successes, whether it be music, singers or musicians or athletes. They think they're an overnight success, but there's so much practice and all that grit that went behind getting to where they were at that people never saw.
Oh yeah, because we just see the highlight reels right now. That's it.
Yep.
Our passion to seek pool industry knowledge and being able to share that knowledge with you is the reason we started Pool Chasers. Turns out Pentair has several ways for you to gain knowledge as well. Take, for example, the Pentair Master Service Program. This is a program designed to recognize dealers, service technicians, and other pool professionals for completing desired training modules. It gives you the tools you can use to troubleshoot Pentair installations in the field and become a master of Pentair product knowledge. Be rewarded for educational activities designed to enhance your Pentair knowledge as you move through the certification levels. With 3 levels to work through, becoming a certified Pentair professional has never been easier. It's training that rewards you and your business. But the real value comes from building your confidence in the field to ensure the customer loyalty you need to keep your business growing. We encourage you to check this out, so to become a certified Pentair professional today, visit pentairpartners.com or click the link in the write-up below. Well, you obviously, you grew up around water, from a very young age, but you went to college, so you probably had a lot of options on the table for you. So how'd you end up getting back into the industry?
I did a few different things actually, and I actually encourage people, especially because I'm coaching college athletes, and so I talk about internships, and anybody that I talk to just in general who asks about internships, I always tell them to do internships because that's really what helped me get to where I am, decide, my path. I started in the industry the summer after my freshman year because I was sick of lifeguarding. And I said to my dad, I said, hey, I want to try working in the business this summer. He was like, all right. And he kind of laughed it off because I don't think he thought that I was going to last. I think if you asked him that question, he says that he thought I'd maybe last two days or 2 weeks or something. But I actually really enjoyed it. And so while I was going to school at Marist and I majored in business, I was still working the summers with my dad, and even during the school year, I would help with things because I was trying to apply what I was learning in business in his business, and so I would work on financial models with him and HR things, and we would work through that, and I really enjoyed it. But I also thought through some of my experiences in school that I thought that I wanted to be on Wall Street. I thought I wanted to be an analyst. I was kind of looking at that model, and when I graduated. Well, so actually go back the year before too, somewhere between my junior year and senior year, I did 2 internships. One was an HR internship, which was with a life insurance company. And I basically was helping recruiting. So I was going through resumes, scheduling interviews, sitting in on the interviews, helping that side of thing. And then the other internship that I did was actually on Wall Street with a wealth management firm. Both of those experiences were so valuable for me because it taught me what I didn't want to do. On the life insurance side of things, I actually really liked interviewing and I liked doing that. I think what both of them taught me though is that I didn't want to do either one of those things all day, every day. That was the biggest thing for me. I couldn't be in an office like that doing the same thing all day, every day. And especially the internship that I did on Wall Street, it was really good all summer. And then they told me at the end of the summer, they're like, hey, if you want a job when you graduate, we'll have a spot for you, but you would start at our Long Island office. And so your last day of your internship, you should go down there and see what that's like. And so I got there and they sat me down. I only was there for 4 hours in Long Island there. And they sat me down with 2 phones and 2 stacks of leads. And I was calling doctor's office after doctor's office, trying to get doctors on the phone to then try to transfer it over to this guy, John, who was certified, or licensed to sell the stock. And I didn't like that at all. So, that told me that. And then I actually ended up in Hawaii for a bit. My now wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, we had met towards the end of senior year, and she was going to school for education, and she ended up getting a job in Hawaii to teach for at least a year. And that happened before we met. And so she was sticking with that decision. So she left that June, and I went out in September to visit her, and I ended up staying for a few more months, and I got a job with a pool company there. That was awesome because I was still learning and doing what I knew. And it was funny though, because on my interview, he was like, oh, what classes have you taken? I was like, oh, I recently took a class on winterization. He's like, yeah, we're in Hawaii. We don't do that. Like, yeah. So I got that job and I stuck with that, but I was trying to get him to let me do some more stuff in the office too. I was trying to let him, I was trying to get him to let me do some budgeting and work on project job costing, even HR things. And he was a bit resistant to it. It was a little bit smaller of a company. It was a family company. He had a son that was in school for business that was graduating, I think, soon after that. It was a great experience, and I learned a lot from him. I just don't think he was ready for that to give me that opportunity. And then a few other things happened. My mom got sick again while I was out in Hawaii. The $700 '93 Cavalier that I bought out there had broken down, and I wasn't going to invest anything more to get another car out there. So I was like, all right, well, I kind of put a few things together. I didn't think my wife was going to, or my girlfriend at the time, I didn't think she was going to stay there more than that year. I needed to be back to help my family because my mom was sick. The car thing broke down, and I wasn't going to invest any more staying out there. And I wanted to do more for the business. I liked being in the field, and I liked building pools and servicing pools, but I also wanted to do the things I knew how to do with spreadsheets and budgeting and job costing. And so I'm thinking like, where can I do this? Where can I do, everything? And I like, go back home and do it. And that's where I can have the best of both worlds. And so I think that was towards the beginning of September 2010. And then so my mom and my sister picked me up from the airport when I flew back from Hawaii, and we went actually straight to the office. And then I've just been there ever since. And it's great because I'm in the field sometimes, I'm in the office sometimes. I get to switch it up. I'm not stuck doing any one thing. And I think the thing I really love about the industry and what I do is the ability to switch it up and not have to do the same thing every day.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Very cool. What's your current role at the company?
So I'm the general manager. And so I oversee pretty much everything. My dad is, I said he started the business and he's still active. He's our lead designer and salesperson, and he's heavily involved in production as well because he pretty much designs and sells every job. So he's overseeing that production. For me, I'm pretty much watching over everything else. I'm overseeing HR. We have a recruiter and an HR person. He's part-time and he helps recruit the people and hire people, but I'm talking with him and setting that up and talking to him about what we're looking for and how we want to do that. I do interviews for anybody that's higher than a crew leader position. So he's hiring lower than a crew leader basically without me. He's talking with our production manager to set that up. For me, I'm interviewing people that are above that level, working on training, budgeting, cash flow, just kind of, all the general business stuff that has to be done in a business, which I know you guys, there's a lot to do for that, managing insurances and permits and licenses and just general payroll things and paying the bills and all that. And then I also oversee the service department completely. And I am involved when it comes to pool construction. I'm mostly involved when it comes to hydraulics and automation. So I'm speccing out all the automation equipment we need and what the plumbing system should be and all that. And then I'm overseeing that. Our service department actually does that work. So they do the plumbing and the automation versus other guys that are doing the forming and then working on patios and things around that. And then we also do irrigation. So I oversee the irrigation service department as well. We do openings and closings in irrigation, which is also an interesting thing to talk about, right, from the seasonality side of things. So we do that, and then we do irrigation repairs and things like that as well. So I'm overseeing that.
Yeah, so that's pretty unique that it sounds like you're keeping a lot of this work in-house. Is that right?
Yeah, we try to do everything in-house. There's some things that just still don't make sense for us, like shooting the gunite and plastering and sometimes rebar. Sometimes we do it in-house, sometimes we sub it out, but we try to really keep things in-house for a few different reasons. One of the bigger reasons is to have more control over it, more oversight, and also just from a cross-training perspective. And, for me, like I said earlier, I really like when the days are different. So for a lot of our people that work for us too, they like being able to do something different from day to day. And so, one day they might be installing an irrigation system. The next day they might be forming out a patio, laying bluestone, and then framing a pool, setting up lighting, landscape lighting. So it's very different. And we like cross training because they like it. And it also helps us because we have a lot of people that can do a lot of different things.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about the types of pools that you guys are building. I mean, are they pretty basic residential pools, or are they pretty big, complex pools with a lot of different features and whatnot?
Most of our pools are more complex systems. We do a lot of vanishing edges, a lot of water features, raised waterfalls. We're doing auto covers. One of the more challenging things that we do, even on a smaller pool, is doing a freeform pool with an auto cover. because you have the cantilevered patio over it. And so it's a really cool effect when it looks like it, because you don't see the tracks and it's all hidden away there. So it's really complex to figure out the levels and the grades and all that, getting the patio to be cantilevered. So there's a lot that goes into that. And I think we've been doing that a little bit more recently than we had been before, but we've definitely been doing vanishing edges for a while and doing some unique things, some unique waterfalls. So we actually, one of my favorite stories that kind of explains what we do is, so we do a consultation. That's like the first step of our process. Client calls and they say they're interested in a pool, and we say, all right, we have a consultation. It's actually a paid consultation. I know there's a lot of people that do free estimates, and we charge for a consultation to go out. And so this one in particular, the client called up and he said, hey, I just bought this house. I had an architect put together plans of where we want the pool, and I'm getting, I think he said 3 bids at the time. I'm getting 3 bids, and I want you guys to bid on it. So can somebody come out and take a look? And we said, well, we don't do bids like that. We actually do a paid consultation where we come out and we'll tell you what we think is best for the property to achieve what you're looking to achieve there. And so my dad went out there. He met the client. It's an old farmhouse, and so there was like a detached barn next to the house. It's all in the woods. And then there was an old stone path, steps that went up into the woods behind the house. The client said to my dad, he says, we're going to put the pool right here next to the barn. It's going to be a 20 by 40, whatever. And my dad goes, okay, what's up those stairs up there though? The client was like, just woods. Why? So, well, let's take a walk up there. So they take a walk up the stairs, and it's all woods, but there's this huge rock on one side and then another rock on the other side, probably about 40 feet apart or so. And my dad goes, all right, so if we're going to build the pool here, what we're going to do is we're going to build the pool in between these 2 rocks. There's going to be a waterfall off that rock over there flowing down in. We're going to do a vanishing edge on this side with another waterfall coming off over this big rock. We're going to put a beach area over there, and you'll come up and you'll see all that once you come through the gate that'll be here at the top of the stairs. I was like, all right, let's do it.
Other companies didn't even see it, right?
No. My dad's really unique like that, though. He sees things that people just don't see, opportunities. I mean, I've been on, I don't know how many consultations with him, and you just stand there and listen to the ideas that he's throwing out about, move this, dig out that, change the grade there, put a waterfall there. We could light that up over there, put the hot tub over there. It's like, whoa. The client's blown away. They're like, we've had 4 people out here and nobody's suggested anything like that. And right. So I think that's really unique for us.
Yeah, that's super impressive. And I'm sure it really helps having that team in-house, since you are doing, all these different pool builds and stuff like that. It's nice to be able to dedicate a team that works for you and only you.
One of the challenges with stuff like that is you can't plan it all out. Yeah. And so that's what makes subbing it out too hard. You can't just give a set of plans sometimes for stuff like that to a sub. And so it's really kind of figuring out as you go to some extent for some of these things and making it work. A lot of the stuff, when my dad spits all that stuff out and then he comes back to the office and he's like, all right, yeah. So we have this job, we're going to do this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, how do you see that happening? Like automation wise? He's like, I don't know. You'll figure it out. Right. And so it's like, that's part of the challenge, right? It's coming up with all those unique things and then just making it work, which is cool, because we have those brainstorming processes like, all right, well, we can make that work by plumbing it this way and making it look like different things. Like right now we're working on a job that's a pretty small pool. Actually, it's a rectangle, but it's got a vanishing edge on one of the ends. And then there's a trough that runs off from it towards the hot tub. And the way we wanted it to look is we wanted 2 different systems, but we wanted it to look like it was one system and like the water was flowing over the vanishing edge down through the trough and into the spa. And so the way we set up the plumbing was that we have a water feature in the trough going towards the spa that pushes water that way. So the water's flowing that way. And then there's a separate water feature at a transition point going into the spa. And so that water is actually just recirculating into the spa, but it looks like it's coming out of the pool down the trough. So it was pretty cool figuring that out. And we put all the equipment in an underground vault. So that was pretty fun to figure out as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, you probably really enjoy that piece of it, because you were talking earlier about how you like taking something and making it work. And, if your father's coming up with all these elaborate ideas and you do the hydraulics and automation, I'm sure there's a really cool piece for you of putting those together and figuring out, all right, well, you want to do it? Like, let's make it happen, and figuring out how to make it work.
Yep. Yep. And then even from a service standpoint too, not only making it work, but then making it so it's serviceable or winterizable. I don't know if that's a word, but making it simple to winterize, or as simple as possible, so that it's not crazy complex. Because at the same time, we do want to scale. And so it is hard to scale doing all this custom stuff that needs to be figured out as you go. And so there's a fine line between unique stuff and creating systems and processes and things that are duplicated or, able to be duplicated anyways.
Yeah, and that's pretty unique that you guys service your own pools. Have you done that since the very beginning, or is that something you did later on down the road?
We serviced a few pools that we had built early on, but we weren't really developing a service department at the time. When I came on, I took a liking to the service. It was really interesting to me. And so every pool that we built after that, we would offer the service. And then at one point, I just said, this is kind of crazy because we cover a big area too. So I'd be driving like an hour north of our shop to service one pool. And then I drive like 45 minutes west to do another pool, to drive like a half hour south of there to do another pool, and it was just crazy spread out. So I said, we have to figure out how to get, these routes going so that it's more efficient. We don't have all this travel time. And so that's when I really started saying we should develop a service department and start doing pools, not only pools that we built, but other pools, and getting those on the routes. And so that's kind of what we've been trying to develop. We haven't gotten it to where I want it to be per se yet, but we're definitely developing it and creating a great team. I think it's working out really well for us.
Yeah, what was the first reaction when you brought that idea to the table?
Yeah, I don't think there was really an issue with him. He was like, all right, my dad was like, all right, yeah, it makes sense.
How do you think that you guys have benefited from having pools that you build anyway on for service? Because we see a lot of upside to taking care of the pools that you actually build, but want to hear from you what you think that is.
When you build a pool, you know where everything is, right? And we take pictures of every step of the way. So I have records of exactly where every fitting is, exactly where every pipe is, exactly where every conduit is, all that stuff. So when it comes to service, it's good because we know where it is and we know exactly what we're doing there. Sometimes on complex systems like that too, if a client tries to have somebody else come in, it's not really even about qualifications. It's just that company didn't build that pool and they don't know really what's going on there. And it could take a whole season for a company to figure out sometimes, exactly what's going on there. We label things and it's pretty, I don't want to say standard stuff, but it takes some time to figure things out. And so we've had situations where clients have wanted to attempt to have somebody else service the pool. Mostly cost is a factor in that, and they think that they can get somebody to do it for less money. And I always say to them, because sometimes they'll try that for winterization too. They'll be like, oh yeah, I'm good. You know what? I think my friend has his pool winterized and it's less money and I'm going to try that company. I said, listen, if you want to try somebody else, that's fine. Like I'm all for it. If you think that you can get the same level of service for less money, good for you. But I don't want you to do it for winterization. Do it for the opening, right? Because winterization, there's more to lose there. There's more risk. If they don't blow it out right, you get cracked pipes and you have issues going on. So that's going to last a lot longer. But in the springtime, so when we've had that conversation, it happens where, so we'll winterize and then they'll have somebody else try and open it. And 2 weeks later, I'll get the call like, yeah, the pool's still not clear and half of it's not running. Well, all right, I'll come out. Right. And so I go out and the filter cartridges aren't in the filter and there's some valves that haven't been opened and there's a skimmer not running and the basket's not in it. And, it's just, sometimes just because they don't know, right? The company didn't take the time to figure out that there's 3 skimmers, in the pool, or that there's deck jets over there that the valve needs to be turned on for, or whatever it is. And I think a lot of companies too, I think it's more so now than it used to be, but a lot of companies at that time too weren't into the automation a whole lot. And so people didn't necessarily know how to handle that, how to set up an automation system, how to program it, understand the schedules and all that. So I think there's more people now doing it, which I think is awesome for the industry. I think I think just in general, if the industry can step it up and get into more technology, more innovation, and not build the same pools and same systems that were being built 40, 50 years ago, I think that's better for the industry as a whole.
Right. And did you guys start to change anything at all once you started having to take care of the pools? Like you actually built the service department, because it's funny how when we took care of pools, we have all these random thoughts, easier said than done. But we're like, well, if we were building the pool, we would have done this, because even if we weren't taking care of the pool, this is really kind of a pain in the ass for this to be right here. So once you put on the service department and you were still building pools, were you having some second thoughts about the way that you guys were building things?
I think we're always learning, right? I mean, even now when there's pools that we're building today, as we see it come together, we're like, oh, it probably would have been better to do it this way, right? To connect that there. But I mean, there's definitely situations. I think one of the biggest examples too for us when it comes to how we do things and what we've changed is just the autofills, especially because we tie autofills into irrigation systems. But if you don't have a shutoff between the two, then when you winterize one, you kind of have to winterize the other. And for us, we winterize both. We winterize pools and irrigation systems, but we don't do them at the same time. And the biggest reason for that is because irrigation systems, we use a tow behind compressor that we rent. When I'm renting and, when I'm paying for that rental of that tow behind compressor, I don't want to do anything else except blow out irrigation systems. Because if I'm doing anything else, that rental is just sitting there and we're paying for it as it's just sitting there. So I don't want to winterize irrigation systems when I winterize the pools. So I want to be able to isolate the autofill from the irrigation. And so that's one of the biggest things that we've probably learned from doing that. Especially too, there's sometimes where it's not us blowing out the irrigation system. Sometimes there's a separate irrigation company that's doing that. And when you tie into the irrigation system now, you have to make sure that they don't mess with your autofill and things like that. So that's one of the biggest things there.
So we talked to Dave and Matt about how their Riptide pool vacuum is transforming the swimming pool industry in episode 86. Have you listened to it yet? If not, what are you waiting for? The Riptide vacuum has many innovative features such as a locking bag ring, a quick disconnect power cable, a 10-year warranty on the vacuum case, and much more. We all know that efficiency is key in our industry, and the Riptide will greatly increase your productivity. The Riptide can filter all the way down to 60 micron for fine debris and is a beast when it comes to heavy debris and leaves. So start working easier and get through your route faster today. To order your Riptide vacuum, head on over to riptidevac.com, where they even offer 0% financing to qualified buyers. And as a special bonus to our listeners, you can use coupon code POOLCHASERS during checkout to get free shipping and 2 free vacuum bags.
Are you the one that's actually developing the processes for both sides of these divisions?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that something that you enjoy doing?
I do. I enjoy setting systems and processes. I wish I had more time for it. I try to involve the team more. We were meeting more as a team, honestly, before the coronavirus situation. It's been a little bit more difficult to meet, although we still try and do remote meetings. But we do have a pretty good team that we've set up and have in place. And I definitely try to involve the team and say, hey, what are the challenges that we're having? What are some things that we're facing? And how can we set up some systems and processes to handle that? And, get some things, delegate. The biggest thing is delegation, especially when it comes to a complex business, like getting people to understand or training people how we do things or how to take care of things is always challenging. And so when you can when you can simplify it and create that system that allows people to follow it more closely. So even just for billing or for payables, actually in general, we have a system that works pretty well. And we've been doing it for a few years now, and it's pretty basic, but we have a administrative assistant is the technical title. What she does is she answers the phones and she enters into QuickBooks all the bills, and she also helps, coordinate some other things relative to materials and everything. But when she gets a bill, or even take it a step back, actually, when the guys get a bill, so if materials are delivered to a job site, they get handed the paperwork. When they bring it back to the shop, we have a stamp. It's a custom made stamp. You can make them on Vistaprint, and it's got the client name, the job area, and then the employee name on it, right? So they stamp the paper, and then they write in the lines what client it was for, what work area it was for, and what their name was, and then they put it in the bin. And then our administrative assistant, every morning, she goes back there, grabs all the paperwork from the bin. She puts that in the system. And so she knows what job it's for and what job area it's for, so that we can job cost that. Because especially some of our jobs, we're doing the patio, the pool, the fire pit, the grill, the lighting, a waterfall, which is costed out separately. And so we're actually doing job costing on all those different pieces. And so we want to know what labor went to where, what pieces and what materials went to where. And so she puts those in the system, and we can track it that way. And then next to her desk, we have the file room. And in the file room, there's different bins that are labeled. So one of the bins is to be entered. One of the bins is pending payables. You know how that works is anything that she pulls from the bin in the back from the guys, if she's not going to put them on her desk and work on them right away, she puts them in to be entered. And then she goes back when she gets time, she pulls it out. So it's to be entered. So she enters it. And when she enters it into QuickBooks, she then has a paper slip. It's a form that we developed that she staples to it, and she writes the due date on it. And it's basically an approval form. She's tracking when the due dates are. And then we try to set a day. It's usually Tuesday. She'll bring all the bills to me with also a bills to be paid report out of QuickBooks. She brings that report to me, and I go through it and I approve what needs to be paid. And then I give that, so I write on that check off approved to be paid on whatever date, pay whatever amount, right? Because sometimes we're not going to pay a full amount for whatever reason. So, if it's $1,500, pay $500, and then she'll pay it and then leave it in pending. But if it's paid in full, then it goes from pending to be filed. And then once things get to a point in to be filed, she goes back and pulls that out and files them in our vendor filing system. And so we try to create those systems that create a flow for those things and keep track of those things.
Right. It sounds like a good system. And is this all like tangible paper, like work orders that are being printed and going through this entire process?
Yeah. So that specific process is only that one paper that gets stapled to the bill. But there's some other things that we have papers for, like materials that get taken from the shop, right? Because we stock some materials. And so like bags of Portland or sand or mulch or whatever. So when the guys take that stuff from the shop, they fill out a form that says how much they took, what job it goes to, and then they put in that same bin for her to take so she can take that out and then enter it into QuickBooks as well. That's a little bit different of a process because sometimes you have those things in inventory and sometimes you don't. Sometimes you do, but you don't, right? Because so like what a challenge sometimes with stuff like that is you'll order whatever, say we have 3 pallets of stone for a job and we use 2.5 of it, we bring half pallet back, but those 3 pallets were costed out to the original job. But now you want to take that last half of that pallet to a different job because you see a use for it, but the whole thing's been costed out to a previous job. So you don't really actually have that in inventory in your computer system. You have it physically, but you don't have it in inventory in your computer system. And so there's a challenge there. And so there's some adjustments that we need to make there. And that's a process that we're working on figuring out and adjusting to make that a little bit smoother of a thing.
Yeah. It's funny how even with all the technology and different forms and software that you can download, sometimes just the good old fashioned form paperwork is a good way to go. As much as I love technology, I'm still printing shit out left and right because, we stare at a computer for so long and, depending on who you're working with, you might have older, younger people that aren't really hip to technology and all the different processes that you have to go through in order to submit some of these actions. It can be really difficult. So I think it's really good to also pay close attention to how your team can be the best version of themselves is, hey, I know how to use this software, but if this is what's going to get the job done correctly, then this is what we're going to do.
There's a good blend. There's good ways to blend the old fashioned with new technology too. And we do that with our pool service department, actually. And I know there's all kinds of technology out there for tracking your pool service logs and all that. But what we do is we use an app, and it's called Company Cam. We use an app there that we take pictures, and it stores it in the cloud, and you take pictures by the job. And so for our pool service guys, when they get to the job, they have to take pictures of what the job looks like when they get there. Anything that needs to be repaired or anything that stands out, they take pictures of. Then they have to take pictures when they leave. But also what they do is they have a paper form where they're writing in their chemistry readings, they're writing in the chemicals that they used, they're making any notes, whether the client asked them about something or something was broken. They're checking off whether they vacuumed, they skimmed, did the skimmer baskets, the pump baskets, all that. And then they're snapping a picture of that. One of the best things about technology is the fact that you can do it remotely, right? When you have good old fashioned paperwork, you need somebody to actually be there to grab that paperwork, to process it. And so when it comes to pool service, one of the guys I told you about earlier that works in our company, the part-time HR guy, he also helps with pool service billing. And so what happens is, and so he works remotely a lot too from home. He doesn't come into the office all that much. And so he can access through the app the pictures of those service logs. And so he uses those to then go into QuickBooks and create the invoices based on the chemicals and what was done and how many visits and all that stuff. And then, so we have that process too, where he does that. He sets those up, and he has, I don't know if you're familiar with QuickBooks, but you can create classes for different types of transactions. And so what we do is we bill on a monthly basis. And so what he'll do, and so opening season is a little bit different, but let's just say in June, for example, once we start in June, he's going to actually create an invoice for every customer that we go to that's dated the last day in June. Then all throughout June, he's adding to that one invoice all the stuff that needs to be billed, and it's classed out to be not ready to be billed. And then at the end of the month, I go in and I look at all the not ready to be billed bills and make sure that it seems accurate to me. I double check some things. I look over some things, make some adjustments, and then I change it from not ready to be billed to ready to be billed. And then that's when we send it out to the customer.
Interesting. Is that because you find it difficult for the guys to carry electronics in the backyard? I know, Greg, we talk about this quite a bit about it's hot outside or you're dealing with water. So, having electronics around the pool sometimes can be difficult. And, are your guys used to filling out paperwork and then snapping a picture of it? Maybe that's easier than actually going through an app and filling out and checking boxes. I mean, why do you guys do it that way?
Yeah, it's a combination of all that. One of the bigger reasons too is because, and it's gotten better recently, but a lot of our jobs are in remote locations. And so a lot of them don't have cell service. Wi-Fi's gotten, made it better. We get a lot of access to Wi-Fi networks at clients' homes now. And so that helps us with uploading. But a lot of those apps, even not until recently, you couldn't get things to work in a disconnected state. There's technologies now relative to these apps that are allowing them to be used in a disconnected state. So even when we don't have service, we can still access things. Obviously, it won't upload until you get reconnected to a Wi-Fi or a cell network. So, I love technology. I love apps. A lot of the software that we use within our business, I actually developed. It's custom software and it's all cloud-based. But one of the challenges with it is just that having the Wi-Fi service and also just the complexity of it. We do hire a good amount of people that are not tech savvy, and getting them up to speed on some of that stuff, if it's complicated, is definitely challenging. And so paperwork is very reliable. Anybody with a pen and the piece of paper can pretty much fill it out. And then the picture app that we use, it's pretty easy to use. So they do that on the site, and that gets uploaded to the cloud so that we can access it. So that's another one of the things too, is it's just easy for me as I'm managing those things. I can see live what's happening. I can see when they get there and what the pool looks like. So if they get there and I see something on the side of the pool, whether it be, a stain on the plaster that I see or some debris in there, like let's say they get there and there's like a bunch of cut grass, right? That's one of the big things that we talk about in the pool industry is the mowing company that throws all the grass into the pool. I think you guys actually talked about that on a recent podcast with somebody. And, so I can see when they get there what it looks like, and I can have a communication with the client, or if there's something that I see that they need to address that I'm not sure if they're gonna pick up on, I can make sure that they know that. So that's useful. And what we do for that too is we use Microsoft Office 365 for our email, and we use the suite for a lot of things. And so one of the things that we use from a pool service perspective is we use OneNote basically for our work orders. And so I have there's a page in a OneNote notebook that's shared with the service department, and they each have their own tab for it. And there's a page for each date. And so I go through and I set the schedule on there, and that uploads live, and they have to check the notes before they leave every job and when they get to every job, because a lot of the times what happens is, let's say 8 or 10 pools on their route that day, and the 7th customer happens to email me that they want us to look at something while they're already out. And if I text the guys and say, hey, Mrs. Smith, which is your 7th stop today, wants you to look at the skimmer because it's cracked or, whatever it is, by the time they get there, they're not going to remember that. We've had a whole bunch of other text conversations about other stuff, about the other jobs. They're not going to remember it. So instead of texting them that, I put that in the notes, which is the live working work order. And so when they get to that job, they can say, oh yeah, Mitch added, check the skimmer, check the cracked skimmer, check the gate latch or whatever it is. Customer asked about this, that, or the other thing. And they can look at it and then report back what's going on. And they take a picture of that. So it works out really good. If I put in the notes, check out, this just happened the other day, the client emailed me and said, oh, we have a broken gate latch. Can the guys look at it? And so I added that to the notes, and they got there and they took a picture of it, and then we were able to resolve it pretty quick.
Very cool.
Yeah. And I think, just to be real honest, not just making a process, because this is a personal failure and constantly had to learn with this, it's so much more than building a really good process. You've got to roll it out correctly, and you've got to stick with it for a really long time before you're going to see results. And that is something that I think I struggled with, where you put so much time into a process and you think that everybody cares about it as much as you. And when it fails, it's because you're like, well, they're just not maybe good enough, or whatever crazy thought comes to your head. When you create a good process is, something that looks good on paper, and you're with your team in the trenches. Instead of quitting, you're perfecting it as time goes on. I just wanted to put my 2 cents in on that, because I think that there's probably a lot of people that, get caught up in, building that, but they really don't, take the time to actually let it do what it needs to do.
Setting expectations is key, but not just that, but then following up on it. One of my favorite books is The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. And one of the things he talks about in there is inspect what you expect. If you set up that process and you're expecting people to follow that process, you need to follow up and make sure they're following it. When they don't follow it, you need to say, hey, we have this process, you need to follow it. Right. And then they might follow it for a day, they might follow it for 2 days, and they might fall off because you might not have checked up on it. Right. And if you don't end up checking up on it, then they're going to be like, oh, well, he's not checking on it, so it must not be that important. Right. So it's about, if it's important, you just got to follow up and make sure that you just stay on and that they get it until it really becomes a routine and they get it.
I like that. I have to check that book out. But keeping your eye on the prize, I think you have to really paint that picture as to why you need a process for something. Because if you're putting together a process, and what that means is it's going to be less calls, you're going to stop wasting money in certain areas. There's all these different things. And it's like, once that process is a kind of a staple in the business and everybody is doing it correctly, this is what the results are going to be. And I think if, you were to keep your eye on what the end result is, if everybody is following that process, I think that would really help in sticking with it. And this might be a basic thing for people, but I always think back to the time when we were rolling out a new software, and Kyle, our producer, was our service manager, said that, well, why don't we try it with one guy first and see how he does, and we'll make all the adjustment as needed. And like, to this day, I always think about that, and that was extremely smart. And I think that a lot of people should have that person on their team that's like, hey, why don't we try it with you? We know that you're going to be honest and you're a little more tech savvy, or whatever it is that, you're building, and just work with them on, making it, perfect, instead of, unleashing it to 5, 10, 15, 20 people. And you just get a shitstorm of emails and calls and texts and everything that we know, happens. You walk in and there's, 20 people sitting in the receptionist's office wanting some answers that you might not have thought of. So My hat's off to you, Kyle, on that one.
You can set all this stuff up and you can think about it in advance. You can have your one guy test and all that. But, at the end of the day, there's always going to be some time or some person or something that it doesn't work for. And you just have to look at that and say, all right, this was one time, why didn't it work this one time? Because every other time it works, right? So it's just this one time it's been an issue. Let's look at why, and just, it might be something that we don't even have to worry about again. But what I'm trying to say is sometimes when it doesn't work, like the first time it doesn't work, it's not working, right? And then you try and change it. But like the reality is sometimes it just doesn't work one time. That doesn't mean it's not working. It just means it didn't work one time. It didn't work for one person. And that doesn't mean that you change your whole system now.
Yeah. And sometimes I think it's an excuse. I think if people are afraid to learn new things, that's like a really good excuse. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Where people might purposely, screw something up in the process, or they're just waiting for one thing to fail because it's like, no, let's just do things the way we've always done them. Like, no, the way we always do things means I'm here till 2:00 in the morning.
Right.
I'm tired of that shit. Like, we're trying to figure things out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One thing that we improved on that really helped us was, so we do the consultations, and my dad, I said, is the lead designer. And so he goes out on all these consultations, and we have somebody else that sets those up, that schedules those. And so there were kind of loose guidelines around when those consultations could be scheduled. And so what would happen a lot of the times is we would schedule it, we'd send out the confirmation to the client, they would confirm, we'd be all set, and then something would happen where it needs to be changed. And so now we have to call the client, figure out a different time. Now they are thinking about their consultation, right? As opposed to before, they're like, yeah, I'm doing this consultation. I got the email. I click confirm. I'm good. The guy's coming. Now they're thinking about it. And so things could change there. And so instead what we did was we sat down and we said, let's pick some times. Let's pick how many consultations we want to limit it to a week. Let's pick the times we want to do consultations and not schedule anything else at those times. And that way, the person that's scheduling the consultations, we have 2 people that schedules consultations in our business right now. Those 2 people know that they can schedule those times, and it's good because that's what we've already set up from the onset.
That's good.
We did that same exact thing with bids. And, Greg and I had a 3-hour window of, hey, I think I was doing 3 a day. You did 2 a day eventually because yours took longer. And so we said to the receptionist, hey, we don't want to do bids any other time besides these 3 time periods. Give them a 2-hour window so that, it gives us a little bit of leeway, but, set them for 9, 11, and 1. And then those are the times that we do bids during the day. So if you have a bid, look at our schedules. It's there. Those time slots are open. Go ahead and schedule it. Obviously, make sure you do it in economic order, but, make sure that you're trying to put things by each other. But those are the times that we are going to be out in the field, and no other times at all because we have other things we're doing. So that worked out really well for us too, to just give specific slots and specific time estimates, and that was a big change for us too.
That's for anything too. That was a big thing just for me individually, to set up certain times and days that I do certain things. So, set the day schedule and the week schedule. And so I use a bullet notebook. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the bullet notebook process, but it's really just about, it's a process to outline your days, outline your weeks, outline your months and your years. And, it lets you plan out when you're going to do certain things, and you got to block those times out. And if you don't block those times out, something's always going to creep. Something's always going to creep in there, and then you're not going to get the stuff done that you want to get done, especially the important stuff. And so, it might not seem urgent, but it is important. And so getting the important things done, setting time for it, and getting that done is really key to making progress, I think. I think there's a lot of times when you don't really set those schedules and you just kind of go through your day, go through your week. And I listen, the bullet notebook thing, it works for me really well, but sometimes I have weeks where I don't do anything with that notebook. I don't even know where that notebook is some weeks. And I find myself being not as productive that week, not feeling as good about what I'm doing. And so I sit down and I got to get back on track.
That's really good. I think everybody's got different kind of workflow, lifestyle, all these different things. I think you really got to work hard at figuring out what works good for you, because the big thing is really you need to know what you need to get done in a day and the next day, but it has to be in some kind of priority order, because that's what it's all about. You could probably think about the things that you need to do, but what are you going to work on first? A really good book on that is Eat the Frog. I don't know if you've read that one, but that one's really good. Kind of talks about the thing that you don't want to do most in that day, you knock it out first, and it just kind of sets the pace and tone for the rest of the day. It's really good. So, with all the things that we were talking about, it sounds like you got a really good handle on the processes and sort of the, business development. What do you see kind of other companies, whether it be service companies or builders, that maybe aren't doing things so well and that, they could really use some improvement in certain areas?
I think coaching and feedback probably is something that a lot of companies can work on. It's really something that we try to work on too. Just talking about another book, Radical Candor by Kim Scott is one of my favorite books, and it's really just about giving frequent and honest feedback to be helpful. Because when you're not giving that feedback, when you're not coaching, you can't scale like that when you don't coach people. When you're just telling people how to do things and what to do all day and all that, you can only get so much done. You can only grow so much. But when you can coach people and help them grow, that's one of the big things that I think a lot of companies can work on, and we try and work on, and we're not perfect at it by any means, but and specifically I try and coach my managers on coaching their people by asking questions. Ask what they think, right? Don't tell them what you think right away or how you would do it. Ask them what their thoughts are, because that's going to help them develop that process in their head of how to think things through and allow you to have more people that can think, right? When you do all the thinking for them, they're all for that because they don't have to think. Because that's how the human brain works in general. The human brain doesn't want to think any more than it has to. And there's a lot of research on that too. I've read some books on that it always, the brain is made to take the easy way out every time. And so if you give people the easy way out by telling them how you want them to do it or what specifically you want them to do, there's a time and a place for that, for sure. When things are more critical. I've, kind of a silly example I've told people in the past is, there's a difference in telling somebody how you want or coaching somebody when it comes to tying rebar in the bottom of a gunite pool than how you want them to organize a toolbox, right? The toolbox nearly is not close to being as critical as how that rebar gets tied in the bottom of the pool. So, don't spend time on dealing with that toolbox. See how they do it. You might have a suggestion, or you might ask them, hey, does that work out for you there? Right. Or is that easy to access, from the toolbox or whatever? Like, oh, well, I could probably put it over here because I do need it kind of a lot. So maybe if I keep it in this other box, which is closer to the door, I can grab it quicker. And oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Why don't you, try that out for a week or two and, let me know how that goes, and then and then you follow up with them, hey, how'd that work out? Oh, it worked out really good. I've been saving time because I don't have to rummage through all, my other toolbox to get it. Cool. Did you think about, anywhere else that could come in handy, that kind of thing? Yeah. I moved this around too, and I started doing things a little different, and it's really helped me save time. All right. That's awesome. Good for you. Right. And so having people that can think those things through, I think is critical, and what a lot of businesses lack.
Well, that's how you make people better. If you want your team to be better, you want those technicians to be better in the field, you can't spoon feed them answers all the time. They call you up and you're a service manager per se, and they're just say, hey, I got this problem. How do I fix it? I think you told me the other day on the phone, the best way to answer that is how do you think you should fix that? What have you tried already? What's the next step? Oh, you've tried that already? Okay, well, that didn't work. So what do you think is the next step to fix this? Oh, nope, it's not right. Let's try this. And you try to teach them and educate them through solving the problem so that the next time they can solve the problem themselves, as opposed to them calling you saying, hey, I got this broken thing. Oh yeah, you use this, certain wrench with this certain O-ring, blah, 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 and it's done. That way, you're making them figure out a problem and solving it, and they're really learning and becoming better technicians. And then, as they grow through their career path, they can become better and better at different things because they have that knowledge themselves and don't just depend on you for that knowledge.
And that's an investment too, because that's costly, right? Taking that time to ask them what they think, what else they think, what else can you do? Like, I get that. That's one of the biggest things. One of the biggest reasons people don't do it. She was like, oh, well, it takes time. They don't need to take time. I know how to do it. So I just tell them how to do it and they need to do it. But the problem is you're not investing in growing because you're just telling them how to do it. So, and like I said, there's a time and a place for that. Sometimes there's a lot to do that day and you just got to tell him what to do so he can move on. But it's going to be beneficial long-term when you can find those opportunities to say, what do you think? What else can you do? Asking questions is one of the best ways to coach.
But I think if you're going to tell somebody what to do, explain yourself on why it is that you're having them do it that way, because they might ask. And I'm thinking about when I was a kid and I used to ask my dad, like, why am I going to, because I told you so. That's why.
I hate that answer.
Obviously he knows more than I do and he was right. But it just doesn't, it's not set in the right mood. If you can explain it to somebody, be like, well, if we do it the way that I'm requesting, this is, what's going to happen. This is going to be the result. And if we do things the other way, customers going to see this. It's not a good look on our business. Whatever it is, sometimes you got to break it down like that because from at a business level, there's a lot of things that people that are working in the field don't quite understand how things are perceived from how a customer looks at what you're doing and how it can make your company look bad. So I think, at least taking a little bit of time to explain yourself in why you might want something done a little bit more differently than the way they've been doing it. A good explanation would be good.
Whenever I get an email or a text from a client relative to something, that the guys did or didn't do, I just screenshot it. I screenshot it and I text it right to them. I just got this email from Mr. Smith, what's up? What happened? And, and then we talk about it. And, I think just like what you're saying, explaining it, like one of the processes I told you about earlier too, I had a whole conversation with one of the guys, the process where they have to look at basically the work order, which is updated throughout the day when they get to every job and before they leave every job. And I had a conversation with one of the guys. He's like, oh, I'm trying to remember to like get everything done. There's just like a lot going on. I said, yeah, that's why this helps you though. There's so much going on. There's so much for you to remember. And for you to remember to check that gate latch or that gasket or whatever, when you get to the 7th job that day, that's hard. It's easy for you to remember every job, check the notes. That way you don't have to remember anything else all day, except check the notes when you get to every job and before you leave every job. All the information is there. That's all you have to remember. It's like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. It'll make your day a lot easier.
Yeah. I wish you could get people to understand that sometimes. I'm telling you this reason for a reason. Like, it's designed for a reason. Stop fighting it. Stop pushing against it. Like, just remember the one thing, and then it's all there. So I always say this, but it's a ton of time and investment in these people, because you all have to understand that the ones that become entrepreneurs, I think, grew up with a different lifestyle. I just think that you have to accept that people were raised different, have different backgrounds. They live in a different area, and it's just different. And I think that you really have to empower them and feel like they do have maybe some skin in the game and they are a part of the company. I think everybody could do a little bit better job of understanding that these people are not just like you, they have issues just like anybody else. It might even be, I think there's a lot of, I'll say it, a lot of service technicians that come from broken homes and come from a real bad situation, but, taking the time to let them express themselves, you're kind of playing, kind of a father figure or big brother, psychiatrist, whatever you want to call it, but taking the time, especially if you see value in this person, in figuring these things out and letting them know that, dude, things can change, man. They don't always have to be this way. Mm-hmm. You live in America, you can do whatever the hell you want to do, and we can put a stop to all of this.
And they're smart too. I mean, they have good ideas. They just don't know that they have good ideas. So giving them the opportunity to realize that they have good ideas and they can think through these things just like you can is really beneficial. Really cool to see. I love when a guy calls me now. He's like, hey, I got this issue, but I did this and it worked. All right, well, why are you calling me? Oh, I just like just letting you know, and I felt really good about it. I said, oh, that's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Set them
have
up
a great
for
rest
success.
of your day.
Yeah.
I just want to ask you a little bit about NESPA. I know you're the president. How has that experience been for you?
It's been great. It's an interesting experience because you go through the chairs, starting as well, you're on the board first, and then you go through the chairs of secretary, treasurer, vice president, president, and then your immediate past president. So that's the whole executive committee. And it's been awesome for me because it's put me in touch with so many people that I've learned a lot from. And, Chaz was even talking about this when he was talking to you guys about how he's learned from sitting with some of those guys in Penn Jersey. And, the same thing is true, whether it be at Metro chapter for me, some of the people that I've been able to meet and talk with, it's just been a great experience for me personally, from a development standpoint. And then, obviously I get to help the industry as well through the work that I do there. And it's never been more important than dealing with this coronavirus situation. We have, members all across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, and Connecticut. Everybody was looking to us. What can we do? What are we doing to be able to do more? And we had a lot of meetings and a lot of conference calls relative to just what's going on and what the best practices are and what the guidelines are. And that was really important for us to be there for the industry in our region. And so that was really, really good to be able to be a part of that. But I think really one of the biggest benefits for me is from a professional development standpoint, just with everybody that I've met and that I work with. And I try to learn from everybody that's there, and it's not just learning about things relative to pools, how people open and close pools, or how people, build pools. It's even about how people hold meetings and how people conduct themselves, how people can influence or impact, or whatever the case is, in meetings, and learning from that. So I try to pay attention to that too, and it's afforded me an opportunity to be in the room with all kinds of really smart people that I've learned a ton from.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. So where can listeners, find out more information about the business, Mitch?
So our website is landofelite.com. We're on Instagram at the Land of Elite. And those are probably two of the sources to find out the most information about us. Awesome.
Well, hey, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. This has been a great conversation. And just want to say thank you once again. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys too and what you do. I think it's great for the industry. So thank you.
Hey, Pool Chasers. Thanks for checking out this episode. Did you know that each episode has its own page on our website? This is where you can find more information about the guest and episode topic, as well as all the resources that we discuss throughout the show. To get to the webpage, click the link below. Also below, you will find links to the sponsors of the show, as well as links to follow us on our social media channels. On our channels, you will find some of our favorite clips and bonus material. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Our tag is Pool Chasers. We also have a Facebook group for the Pool Chasers community. Here you will find like-minded professionals all looking to make each other better. One last thing. If the episode has brought you value, please check out our Patreon page to support us. And if you could please rate and review the podcast, we would love to hear what your favorite topics are. Thank you for your time and your ear.
See you out there, Pool Chasers.